bro. What's with the knife?
Oh, yeah, I've reached peak desperation, and I am contemplating sacrificing somebody to the hockey gods so that Swayman will finally sign a contract.
Seems reasonable. Who's it gonna be?
Well, that's the holdup. I'm just not really sure who it's gonna be yet. No, he's too young, and he's cute. Absolutely not. He's the perfect little man. And he's cute. Put her down before you become my answer.
Huh?
It would get me in a lot of trouble, but...
Whoa! You can't just sacrifice my fiance because you think it'll make your hockey team a little better. Seriously, guys, sometimes I think you forget that this is all just a game.
Just a game?
Frying pans. Who knew? But there's your answer.
Locomotive fans of a high-quality Bruins team. We have Game 1 of the preseason tomorrow, Sunday, the 22nd, the date, 22nd, I think. The Bruins hockey is back. Now, the first couple of games of the preseason probably aren't going to have a ton of players that you would expect to see through the season, but it's Bruins hockey, and it's back, and I'm very excited about that. The thing is, there's a couple storylines going into the camp. Every team has storylines going into the camp. It's actually, I like these videos. That's weird to say about a video I'm making. But I like these videos from fan bases because I get to go over and listen to a perspective that knows far more about their team than I possibly could. Because I can't possibly spend the same amount on the Minnesota Wild as I do on the Boston Bruins. Amount of time, I should say. You simply cannot know the team as well as a diehard fan. The national reporters are a great lesson in this. As you listen to national broadcasts or read articles by national guys, they say things about your team that are very surface level, and every time they try to go for something deeper, you can tell they actually haven't been up to date to that level with that player or team or whatever. Some of them are very good at it. I'm not just disparaging the whole group of them, but it is impossible, even if it's your full-time job, to truly know a team as well as the diehard fans of that team. So I like videos like this because it helps me get more educated from the fan base for whatever team that I'm watching. There are, what do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 storylines to watch of varying degrees of interestingness. I'm making up words now. Number 1 is super easy, so I'm just going to throw it out there and we're going to move on. The Swayman extension. Duh. Please see previous video. I can't possibly do that again. The whole thing, I can't. I've said my piece on it, and we are where we are. So check out previous videos about my take on the Swayman extension, but that will just loom over the entire preseason because there's no way for it not to. It won't loom over the locker room, I don't think. I think the players are pretty locked in. I think there's enough new guys and rookies vying for spots that their focus better be just their play on the ice and how they're kind of meshing in with other Bruins who are staples on the roster. I don't think this is going to loom over the locker room quite so much. It will loom over the media and the fan base and, of course, the ownership and front office. That is what it is. We are where we are. We're going to move on from that. But let's go through these other 6 things that I find really interesting. I haven't really put them in any specific order, but this next one is one of the most interesting ones to me by far. The second right wing slot, when you break it down, is wide open, and it comes down to really 4 options, right? 4 options. Liesel, Geeky, Frederick, or someone else on the team with a right shot. Just those 4. I'm mostly joking. The competition up there is actually pretty thin. The 3 players I mentioned are very much involved in it, but it does feel like anyone outside of that group is kind of a long shot. And we'll start with the most obvious. Geeky. He's got the inside track, in my opinion, out of pure experience in that role with 4 of the 5 members of the top 6. Lindholm's the only new one. I don't know why I put that in quotes. He's new. Lindholm's the only new one to that group, and you would expect, unless Marchand is missing time, that everyone else is well decided. Marchand, Coyle, Zacha, and Pasternak. That just leaves a second right wing slot open. Geeky is, if I was going to put this in gambling terms, probably a -115 to take the role. If you don't know what that means, he's a slight favorite for it, right? He's a slight favorite. The reason I say that is because the team knows what they have with him. So, in reality, they're probably penciling him in there because he's the easiest option. They also know that he is best used as a third-line winger or center who adds to that. I mean, he's not an overly big dude, but 200 pounds, 6'3", he adds a good forechecking pressure. A beefy third line that can also skate is something that we have on the roster if they're not needed elsewhere in the lineup, which sounds ridiculous because most teams probably have that if it's not needed elsewhere in the lineup. But a Brazeau, Geeky, Frederick third line feels like it would be really, really unfortunate to play against. Lot of physicality there. And 2 out of those 3 guys can move the puck. 2 out of those 3 guys can crash the net really well. All of them play a decent possession game, and they all have eyes for the net, even though Geeky routinely fails to get the puck there. That is a line that I think would really work well as a third line. Brazeau obviously is an only maybe there, but those 3 would, I think, look pretty good in that position. Either way, Geeky is still the obvious choice if somebody doesn't grab the reins from him. All of that to say, as much as Geeky was serviceable in the top 6 when he had to be used there, the team is well aware of how he stunts the offensive production of that line when he's out. I'm not saying Geeky's crap. I'm just saying he's not at a top 6 level, and that's okay. In comes Fabian Lysell, a 22-year-old rookie who was on a tremendous pace at the end of last season, whose 200-foot game had exploded the second half of the year. Way, way, way better when it comes to neutral zone play, defensive positioning, although he's not great at it, just fluidity in all 3 zones. But the most important thing is his offensive ability. His skating, his passing vision, I should say, his offensive IQ. That's where he shines. His one-on-one ability, he's great in those regards. Can he play at the NHL level and those things still shine while still being a responsible NHL player? We don't know. But if he shows that he can through camp, he's going to get first dibs on that role. The reason I say Geeky still holds the reins is because Lysell hasn't shown it yet. But he really only needs a good camp, not even a great one, for the team to be like, okay, let's try him. Let's just get him in there and try him. Because there is kind of a desperation need for that role to be someone who can skate and skate well, really well. The guys below him on this list, they're good skaters. And they're productive players. And they have decent vision. But they're not top 6 quality. And Lysell might be top 6 quality. And that's what we are hoping for. It's not a long shot. And there's a lot of positive words coming from the coaching staff about how he ended last year. Of course, the injuries hampered him quite a bit. So that was a tough end of the season. Especially considering it felt like it was all coming together and that he was going to get called up to the big club shortly because we needed a little extra offensive pop, particularly on the power play units. Didn't work out that way. He's had a pretty decent injury history already for such a young guy. So there's a lot of concern there. All that being said, the team would love it if he could grab onto that role. And they're going to favor him. They are not going to put him in that role if they don't think he's ready. But boy, are they going to be internally rooting for it. Also, I just think it'd be really awesome if we could roll a 1-2 punch of Pasta, Lysell, and back-to-back shifts, and that poor left defenseman, whoever is handling those duties, is just trying to stay in front of both those guys. You can criticize Lysell all you want, but his skating ability is no joke. Staying in front of that guy sucks. It does. Our third option, Trent Frederick. I threw him in because it's the only one that really makes sense to me. I don't think it makes the most sense with the options on the team. He plays well with Coyle, who's the projected 2C, but he has a game-changing presence when he's on a third line that can play a heavy offensive possession game. He's not going to be a game-changing presence in the top 6 because the competition is the competition. You would love to have him take advantage of the competition at that lower line. Or simply use him because he's excellent defensively, use that third line to free up one of the top 6 lines against easier competition. Trent Frederick's a guy who can do that. You put him in the top 6 at a pinch if it's necessary because he does play a good offensive game. He is a reliable guy. And that line is better with him than some of the other options. I think, honestly, that line is better with him than Geekie. But given the choice of how the roster breaks down, I'd still probably put Geekie there over him, just because I really like the matchups he gets on the third line. It feels like that one's the most stretch out of the 3 that we've mentioned so far. I just also, he's been so consistent and so strong that you want to put his name in that top 6 option right there. More of an emergency parachute, if you will. The other player who's a right-handed shot, well, that's Patra. That's only Patra. I know some people are going to say Brazeau, but Brazeau doesn't have the speed, the skating ability, the offensive IQ. I complimented him earlier about his crashing the net, his forechecking, his crashing the net. That's what I really love about him. He takes that puck and he goes net. That's what he wants to do. The guy's got zero fear of just getting pucks on net. He will bully through guys to get there. It's not a second line style of play. It's not a style that's going to work well with Marchand, I don't think. I think it actually works fine with Coyle for the most part, but I don't like the breakdown of that line, and I think he's going to be, if that second line is going against other teams' top lines, he gets just obliterated through the neutral zone. He's not a terrible skater, but he's not a high-end skater by any means. So Brazeau, to me, is a non-starter there. None of the other names other than Patra really gets me all that jazzed up here. Patra, I don't love in this position either, because I'd like for him to get more reps at center. That being said, if he forces his way onto the lineup once again, because this year there's a lot more conversation, and we're going to start about this. In fact, the next point is where does Patra start the season, so we're going to bleed into that a little bit. But if he forces himself onto the roster and Lee Sells not ready, maybe the team does go, all right, third line is going to be heavy. Let's get a talented guy up on the second line, which is Patra. He's got a lot of skating ability. He's got a lot of vision, a lot of squirreliness to maintain possession while making guys miss. Hopefully he's gotten a little better at maintaining possession while taking contact. We'll see how that goes. But maybe that's their option if they feel Lee Sells not ready. Again, that's an option that feels like more of a stretch, but the more you talk about it, the more it actually makes sense. If Patra has to stay in the lineup because he simply is too good to get pushed down, and Lee Sells is not ready, I don't really see a problem with them going, okay, well, let's get the most offensively talented guy we can on that second line. Boom, Patra. On to our next point. The next big item for the preseason to figure out. Where does Patra start the season? I think I've learned my lesson about betting against him, because I laughed at him in his initial interview preseason last year where he said, I want to force them to keep me. That's basically what he said. And I laughed. It was a chuckle. It was a calm chuckle. It was that's the right attitude. I love this guy. Awesome. You are 19 years old, 170-something pounds. Come on, man. What are we doing? And then he threw that in my face. And I love that. I loved that about him. He's got a plethora of competition, both at the center position and the right wing. That being said, if he looks really how he did the first 10 or so games last season, it's really hard not to keep him in the lineup. This is more about where he is after 8-9 months of not playing professional hockey. That injury was the first major injury he's ever had in his hockey career. He said that's the longest he's ever gone without playing hockey. That's a tough thing to come back from, especially being so young. Like, obviously the body heals better when you're young, but there's a mental aspect to that. And there's a catching back up to speed. And there's a debate whether he was truly up to speed or if it was a flash in the pan for those first 12 games. I think he was up to speed, but that's just me. I think the injury hampered him so much that second 15 games that he was in, he played 33 in total, I think. In that second half, and people were talking about how little production he had. I think it was because his shoulder hurt like hell. That's pretty easy. That being said, all that being said, I won't panic with an AHL assignment. But it does feel like he should be ready for a strong sophomore season. I feel like he can beat out the competition he has in front of him. And the team having so many flexible players in the bottom six means that if he looks good, there's a lot of ways they can put him in the lineup. Whether it's 3C, second right wing, third right wing. Well, really just those three. But still, not bad. Unless he looks tremendous and takes over 2C so Coyle and Frederic can work together on the third line. Well, how great would that be? Oh, Marchand, Patra, Liesel. That's a very bullyable line. I don't know about that. It's a lot up in the air. But my prediction for that is, and this is affected by me thinking Liesel's going to make the team. My prediction is Patra does make the team and makes some decisions very difficult from there. It also forces Merkulov down into the AHL, but we'll talk about that in a second. The next storyline, Marchand's health. Will he be ready for game one? He's saying yes, but he's not ready right now. He had 3 surgeries in the offseason. 3. That's a lot of rehab. That's a lot of muscle mass lost. Takes time to come back from that. I don't think, as a captain and as who Marchand is, he misses a single game to start the season. I think he's locked in game one, and as long as, obviously, nothing gets worse, I think he just rehabs his way through the first 15 games. I think he'll hit his stride closer to November, mid-November, and that might be hopeful, honestly. He's not going to be 100% to start the year. So let's cool the jets when everyone starts roasting him after the first 10 games. I think it's going to take time for him. That being said, I don't think he misses any of the actual season to start the year. The next one I have on my list, number 5, technically really number 4 because the Swayman one is done in a different video. The backup to Swayman. Do the Bruins carry 3 netminders? Now, on the assumption that Swayman gets signed before the start of the season, to keep Korpisalo and Bussy, you'd have to carry 3 netminders. Bussy would require waivers to go back down. So there's a little bit of nervousness here. Frankly, I don't like the idea of carrying 3 netminders. And if the herd mentality, please hear that as panic, from the Bruins fan base should be believed, we won't have to because Swayman won't be signed. I think Swayman will be signed. I think it'll be fine. So who's battling for that second spot? Well, Korpisalo and Bussy are. Who gets it? I like Bussy's odds. I like them a lot. He's been relatively consistent over the past couple seasons down in the AHL. Korpisalo has been anything but consistent. I am going to take my bet and put it on the guy who has less to unlearn, has less to correct from his game. Bussy is taking what he's learned through our system and trying to bring it to the next level. Korpisalo is breaking down an atrocity of a previous year and fixing things that were a problem. I would rather do the one step, elevate, rather than the breakdown, then elevate. Because there are bad habits that set in over a full year of playing behind a team that, I mean, again, I'll point this out again, Ullmark and Korpisalo faced a very similar workload analytically. So take that for what you will. But I don't like the idea of going with a guy who has some bad habits built in from playing behind a team that was not very good. And he was horrible behind them. He as an individual was bad last year. I really don't want this rumor to persist that it was because of Ottawa. I'm sure that played a role, but Korpisalo as an individual was really bad last year. I like Bussy's odds. I love goalie Bob. I believe in his methods. I think he gets us where we need to go with Korpisalo. I still like Bussy's odds. It's just about elevating this game. And if we do start the season with just the two of them, I would expect closer to a 50-50 tandem rather than somebody having like a 60-40 split along those lines. I think they're going to try to go back-to-back as long as one guy isn't completely drowning. You know, you can't have a video like this without talking about rookie surprises. That's something that a lot of people, depending on where your franchise is, like that's what the preseason's all about, is the rookies. For us, it's Liesel and Merkulov. They're getting their chances. Liesel has an easier path, albeit a more difficult role to fulfill, but we've already talked about him. Merkulov, well, he would need two things to happen, right? First of all, multiple players on the right side need to struggle enough that Patra, Johnson, if signed, we'll talk about that in a moment, or Geekie are required to start the season on the right side. That means that Brown doesn't make the team, which feels obvious. Kostelic doesn't. That's a little less obvious. Brazeau doesn't. A little less obvious because Brazeau plays both sides. Max Jones plays both sides. Vinny Lettieri plays both sides. Vinny Lettieri, I think, plays both sides. So if players on that right side struggle, and it forces one of those centers to move over, that leaves the center position open, or that center position is filled by Trent Frederick, who's our currently projected third left wing, depending on where you look. Force him to go to the center position, leaving the third left wing open. Now, Merkulov, in my opinion, is not a fourth line guy. He's got too much offensive IQ and upside to be used there in those lower minutes. He also has not enough physicality to be considered a grinding type to shut down other teams. Needs to be in the top 9. Problem is, a lot of guys that need to be in the top 9 to a certain degree. So, whether it opens up the center slot or the winger spot, which I think Merkulov's a winger at the NHL level, personally, so I'm just going to pretend, that needs to happen. Needs to have some openings there. The second thing he needs for this to work, he would need to outperform everyone else who didn't struggle. For instance, if Brown and Lettieri are already penciled out of the lineup, if, say, Brazeau struggles and falls out of the lineup, Patra's moved to the right side, Frederick takes over at 3C, Geekie would be at second right wing, and that leaves Jones, who may be best fit at fourth left wing, Kantar, who's trying to make a push, Farinacci, who's trying to make a push, McLaughlin and Duran both trying to make a push. You'd be confident about him beating out most of those guys, but you probably notice that if we do that, then Liesel's out of the lineup in this case. The odds of both Liesel at second right wing and Merkulov at third left wing with a healthy Patra at 3C or third right wing are very low, especially because those guys don't play fourth line hockey. None of those three can be a fourth line guy. Not physical enough, not a grinder, just you don't want their minutes to suffer. They're not that kind of guy. They're not that kind of player. That's not the structure of the team. They belong in the top 9. Frederick and Geekie also belong in the top 9. You don't want their minutes to suffer with fourth line roles. All three of Merkulov, Liesel, and Patra would need to beat out established NHL players, including one of Geekie and Frederick. Because if you look at it right now, that's 10 guys for 9 spots. I don't see that happening. Liesel, I think, makes it. Patra, I hope makes it. And I think he does. Merk probably starts in the AHL. And that is not going to be something he's happy with. And unless Marchand's not ready, which we talked about previously, there's just really no way around that. He would truly have to outshine his competition to a massive level to get that third left wing spot. It's tough out here, man. Reality is tough. The only other rookies on the radar, in my opinion, are Kantar and Duran, and both of those are looking to make a push into the fourth line. Duran, in my opinion, is the guy to watch. I don't think he starts the year in Boston, but he does well enough to be one of the first guys called up. His motor is so impressive that you can put him on a line of guys who the whole conversation about them is their motor, and he's still the best one. His finish has been really, really impressive through the offseason and the different camps and things of that nature. He's just been a tremendous bottom 6 hockey player. I really like his odds to see some NHL games this year. I think he's that good. Now, he's a fourth line guy, fan favorite type. You need those guys. And trust me, you will never, ever question if Riley Duran wants it or not. It's genuinely, I like to think, we all like to think we work our ass off, especially if you've played sports. When you're out there, you always believe that you're a hardworking guy, that you're the guy with the engine. Everyone believes that about themselves. Sometimes you watch a guy like Durant and you're like, how the fuck do you, where does it come from? How are you able to muster up this much stamina, strength, aggressiveness? Like, dude's just a different breed. He's a different breed. Last big point of the preseason to me. Last focal point, if you will. Tyler Johnson's PTO chances. I don't think there's a lot of mystery about what Tyler Johnson is. He's a depth guy who could eat some minutes in the bottom six. He had 31 points, 17 goals on a butt-cheeks Blackhawks team last year. But take those stats and throw them out, please, for the love of God. They don't mean anything. I'll tell you why they don't mean anything. They don't mean anything because he was shooting 15% last year. Let's call it unsustainable, to be nice. That's not going to happen again. He also had 16 of those points come on the power play. Do you know what Tyler Johnson should not be on this fucking team? The power play. He's not a penalty killing type. I don't love his odds to make this team unless Patra is truly not ready. If Patra forces his way onto the lineup, bye-bye Johnson. It just doesn't make sense. Like, maybe you sign him as like a 13th, 14th forward. Fine. But I don't like him on our third line. I don't think he beats out the guys also vying for that position. On the fourth line, we have so much skating ability mixed with size. Kostelic, Beecher, Jones is my, like, way too early fourth line pencil it in. But those guys can skate. And they can hit. And they can just take bodies as well. They block shots. I like him. Tyler Johnson isn't a bad hockey player, but he's aging out a little bit. He's a grinder type, but he doesn't have the foot speed anymore. I'm going with in-house stuff. It doesn't make sense to me unless Patra is truly not ready. That opens the door for him a little. It also opens the door for other guys. I'm not jumping all over the Johnson stuff here. A lot of people jumping on the Johnson. A lot of people seem to think that he's going to get a contract. He's not Danton Heinen, and I don't think there's a lot of room for him. I don't see why we would spend the money. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me unless a couple of guys are truly not ready. All right, guys, it does it for me. Like, comment, subscribe. Nailed it. Hockey. It's back tomorrow. I've been saying it's back for like a week and a half because it has been. But now we actually get to watch some stuff and make wicked, outlandish assumptions about it. This first 3 games of the preseason are always at like 30% speed for the NHL players and then at a pretty aggressive speed for guys just trying to make the team. A lot of misleading stuff will happen. I don't really care. I'm just really excited to get started. And I think you should be too. Go Bees. Or else. Go Bees! And of course, we have to say a big old thank you to the high quality inspectors who happen to all be 10 out of 10s. Not sure if you guys knew that. We've got our top line tier inspectors, GD Viperworks, Tiffany Hagel, Chris and Erica, Len Cruz, Moonlighter TV, The Bugman, Brock Nope, Han Slomo, Coach D, The Atomic Lizard, Bradley Johnson, Aaron Adams, Just Aaron, Darren Woodbury, Brett Arney, Pinsent, and Nick Zatrullo. Absolute studs. 10 out of 10. I'm not kidding. Every single one of them. And, of course, there's the highest of high quality inspectors. The all-star tier. 12 out of 10s. Can you believe it? So hot. We've got the Mad Marcus, Adrian Winter, Tyler McCourt, Tupton D. Tashi, John Kirk, Jacob Pratt, Heil E. Coyote, Michael DePaulo, Wolf Warrior, Vinny, Adam Ella, Bruin Smash, Joel, Abraxion, D.A. Kingery, The Only Newts, A Tasty Snack, Doots42, and Jeremy. You guys are stallions. You're all legends, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you and your help with keeping this channel going. Thank you. And go Bees.